Today's podcast is brought to you by StrongHeartAcademy.com, where no heart is no victory. We are also brought to you by BJJ To Go. If you want to build your game and learn jiu-jitsu, go to bjjtogo.com. Third thing we're brought to you by is Rat Bat. You got rats? Want to kill bats? Kill them with a rat bat. Fourth thing we're brought to you by is hot dog flavored water ingredients. If you want to add it to your smoothie, hot dog flavor ingredient.
Run up into Cambodia or into...
Yeah, I was telling Adrian about it. I had a student. You're talking about they're in Cambodia and they're not supposed to be in Cambodia.
Yeah.
I said I had a student that was this really cool old guy that was a firefighter investigator, and he was always to tell me, he's like, I'm a cop and a firefighter. He was an old guy, but he was really interesting guy. And then you know how they have weird schedules where they're like 2 weeks on, 1 week off, whatever. So on his off time, he would do hunting scouting. Like, he's a master hunter, and people would pay him tons of money to hunt ram and something else. I think mountain lion or something.
Oh.
He was really skilled at being like a stalker, basically. And he was like, well, yeah, I was in Vietnam, and I was special forces in Cambodia. And he would tell, he didn't tell me like crazy stories, but he said, like, I always thought it was the funniest thing that we would see reports. Like Walter Cronkite was like, yeah, we're not in Cambodia. And he's like, I'd be drinking a Coca-Cola in Cambodia, like in a forward operating base or something there. And he's like, we would have TVs there, and I would just be drinking. He's like, literally Coca-Cola, America, drinking it in Cambodia. Then he's like, yeah, we're not in Cambodia. I'm like, I'm standing in Cambodia right now. So it was funny, like, when Adrian was telling me about that podcast. I was like, oh, that's so funny, because I don't remember that guy's name. He was a super cool guy. And he was trying to do jiu-jitsu, and he was like in his late 50s at the time. Yeah. And he didn't even stop from physics. He was just a badass. The guy was a badass. So some of those guys are just cut from a different cloth. They're not normal human beings. And what America asked them to do is insane. Like, hey, you got 4 guys. I need you to go fight a battalion of 200 men. Like, what?
No, like 3,000.
That's
He's
insane.
like, all right, well, they were talking about all these different times they got in these prairie fire emergencies. Is what they would like. That's their code, prairie fire emergency, which means they need like immediate air support, immediate extraction. Like, they're about to get their position overrun. And they said they would do a lot of 8-man teams and a lot of 10-man teams. And then he said, like, there's rules, like, you never split up the team. Like, that was disaster. And he did it twice, and, like, it saved their lives. But he knew that he had to split the team. And just, there's this crazy stuff. That whole podcast is insane. And I'm halfway through the second one.
Are they long, like 2 hours, or?
I don't know. I can pull them up, but it seems like a second, but they must be long because I listened to them all the way to work and back, and it's like 51 minutes to work. So
that's why podcasts are nice, because I could listen to them in the car. There's no commercials.
Yeah. And
if they're interesting, then driving is not interesting, so I could listen to them while driving.
So terrible.
You're Dr. Peter Stockton. I have you on here because you're my favorite, probably human, and yeah. So, and you have a lot of crazy stories yourself, because you've been to a lot of crazy places. So that's basically, I came on here. I don't have any plan about anything. None of these I have planned. I don't write questions out. We ate before this, so I try to keep these like if we were at a dinner and I had a friend that I haven't seen in a long time, and it's going to be a long dinner. We're just going to hang out and talk. And that's kind of how I do it, like you just talk. So, there's a lot of interesting things about you. We were talking at lunch. I would say the first thing maybe we could talk about is you lived in South Africa for like 2 years.
Yeah. So I give you like a little short time of my life. So I was born in Tucson. First 5 years, then we moved to California to a place called Novato, which is just it's in Marin County, and it's just north. And my dad was working in San Francisco at the time, and then for 5 years there. Then 5 years. So when I turned 10, we came back to Phoenix Christian High School and Phoenix Christian kind of life. So Phoenix, And then when I turned, I think it was 16 or 17, somewhere there, my parents moved to Oregon, and they left me here for like half a semester in the house, and
When
then
you were like a teenager?
to like finish. Yeah, it wasn't half a semester. It was like a month and a half. They
By
left
yourself?
left me here by myself to finish high school.
That's some super trust.
And then I went up to and then I went to Glendale Community College, and then from there I went on to NAU, and from NAU then I went to Colorado and lived in Colorado, in Vail, Colorado.
I didn't know you lived in Colorado too.
And then I lived there for
You like
like
to move a lot.
4 years, and then and then I went to from Colorado, where I attended Vail Community College. I took fencing and potter, like throwing clay, like you do the wheel and
Yeah,
so,
like Ghost.
yeah, like ghost. Ditto.
Shirtless, of course.
Of course, shirtless. Nobody wants to see that. So then we go to and then from there I moved.
Were
got
you
really
in
good at
Colorado
fly
by
fishing.
yourself?
Yeah, I got really good. My dad told me to move there because he wanted a place to stay when he went skiing.
Oh, that's nice.
So then I went to Eugene, Oregon, and went to University of Oregon, and then and then I went from there. I went to South Africa for 2 years to visit my aunt Charmin, and
She's actually an interesting person too. Actually, I should ask her to be on my podcast.
dude, she's
Aunt
way more
Your Aunt
interesting than me.
Sharma's a super cool lady.
She's like, you know how I don't know if you've met people before in your life where you're like, this person just does what God wants them to do.
Yes, you.
This guy.
You're the one. Yes,
Well,
you're the
Charmin-
guy.
Charmin's
Maybe
my
she helps
inspiration for that.
inspires you, which is awesome too. Everyone's gotta be inspired by somebody.
She's one of those people where you're just like, oh gosh, if I could get to that level,
Yeah,
like I don't have to worry about anything because she
Yeah,
just loves God so
I
much.
just feel like certain people, they've figured out how to get their ego out of the way and let God fill that space. You know, like take the ego part out and then let God come in and take over and work in you. And you're one of those people, and it's inspired me to try to be. I'm working on that. I'm trying to be that, and but my ego gets in the way all the time.
That's funny you say that because
So
I feel like I'm all ego, so I don't.
Yeah. Sometimes we judge ourselves unfairly. You said you were in. So you were just gonna visit. Did you plan to stay 2 years, or you just kind of ended up staying for 2 years in South Africa?
No, so I went to visit for 2 weeks with my dad, and I stayed for 2 years. So
Were you just your dad's like, well, I'm going back to the United States, so
my dad ended up not showing up, and then my aunt picked me up, and my luggage didn't come, and so we like had to go to the store so I could buy some clothes, and then my aunt took me up to the mission where she was working at as a mission school, and she was the kind of like interim principal, and she said, hey, would you teach first grade? Like my first grade teacher's not going to show up for a little bit. I said, sure. So I said, I got like 2.5 weeks here. So I started teaching, and about 2 weeks in, she found out the teacher wasn't coming. And so and this is really when I got really serious about God too. I didn't believe in Jesus at the time. I had been raised Christian.
really?
Yeah. When I was 12, I mean, I think some people go through this, some people don't, but I caught my dad lying to me. Like really lying to me, like straight up bald-faced lying to me, and I don't even remember what it was about, but I remember thinking I can't trust him, and if I can't trust him, he's told me to follow God, he's told me.
Oh no! Now you're making me question my own children. Like how many times I might have not been honest about things.
So anyway, it like shook me really bad when I was 12, and I decided that I have to figure it out for myself. Like I've always been one of those people.
That's not bad though.
Well, I mean, looking back, I wish I didn't go the direction. Anytime I'm the captain of my ship, we run right into the rocks. I mean, it's like I don't know if I just really am that bad about steering the ship or what, but it's like
It's the ego, man.
yeah, seriously. I mean, forget about it. So I go to South Africa to hang out with my dad for 2 weeks and visit my Aunt Charmin. And I'm like, oh, cool, it's South Africa. And I get there, and I'm reading books on how to be a better teacher, and I'm teaching first grade. And my aunt says, "Can you stay and be a teacher?" And I was like, "Well, no. Like, I got to go to medical school. I got all this stuff. I have all these plans that I'm going to do." And I wasn't in medical school. I wasn't even like halfway done with my college career at that point. So, she's like, "Would you stay?" And I said, "I can't really do it." And she said, "Well, would you pray about it?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't even believe in God." Like,
So you were at a mission, like,
I was just
place.
visiting my aunt.
Oh, so you weren't there because you were just visiting
I
your
was just
aunt.
like, it's vacation. I was just get to hang out with my dad and go do this fun thing. And, maybe see some rhinos or something.
But you were in the middle. It's like in the middle of nowhere, though, right?
Literally. It's in Trans-Kai, which is across the Kai River. And it's almost like a reservation that all the apartheid people put on. Is it? Sorry, it's too loud.
The hissing is driving me crazy. Sorry.
And so it's like, it's almost like a reservation, like kind of similar to what happened with the Indians and with the Native Americans. Sorry, and then and so it's just really interesting. They pushed everybody in this one area, and then it
like
got
black tribes.
Yeah, all the Xhosa people. So, anyway, they put an area that had like 10,000 people. They put 350,000 people in it.
Oh my goodness!
And just said, "Hey," and then they pointed to it and said, the apartheid people pointed to it and said, "Look, you screwed up. Like we put you in this area and you totally destroyed it." It's like, well, yeah, you they had 10,000 people in it. You put 350,000 people in it, like overnight.
Yeah. Oh,
and
geez.
they cut down the forest, which got rid of all the animals, because they had to build houses because anyway. It was it's like. And then they were saying you can't cut down the forest. It was just got crazy. Apartheid is like really bad, kind of epic level bad stuff. So, anyway, I got there and apartheid had been gone and Nelson Mandela was president, and so I got to walk with him. It was really cool.
What?
Yeah,
With Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, so my aunt was kind of a favored person. She was inducted into a tribe in South Africa. Yeah.
Oh, I have to have your
college,
aunt on here, man.
So, yeah, you got it. She's just amazing. So she
You have
like
to put a good word in
with
for
him.
me to see if she'll.
Dude, she'll do anything. She's amazing. She's coming back in a couple weeks too.
Okay,
so.
cool. Maybe I'll hit her up.
Yeah, she's got crazy stuff. So I went to she like actually walked with him like 2 miles, like walked with him and talked with him, like her and like 5 people. I
Talking
got to
and walking.
Yeah, he did that a lot, and I got to do. So a different time, I got to do that with him, but I didn't ever get to talk to him, because he was talking to some other people.
Yeah.
In Tabi, the guy who took over for him. Anyway, but he's from that region originally, so it was just there's amazing stories. He was talking about how he thought that he was amazed at how like soap worked and how he was so clean all the time, because he was talking about how when he was a kid, the way that he got clean was he felt gross or like oily, so he would go into the water where the cows were, and he would take the mud and he would rub it on his arms, and then it would get rid of the oil, and he felt clean, even though there was like cow dung and like other stuff in the
water.
Yeah, the water, and how he was like, this is what clean was to me, and now clean is like taking a shower, and he's like, look where I've come from, and it was him talking about that stuff was just really crazy to hear. I don't know. He was I didn't get really like I didn't get to talk to him. I shook his hand, but I don't know. It was cool. It's Nelson Mandela.
That's pretty cool.
That's a dude.
That's a important like historical figure that you got to shake hands with. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I went in his cell too, where he was held on the island that he was held on. So that was crazy too, because it's like this little tiny cell, and he lived there for years and years and years, and just kept telling like all of the guards, like the guards apparently really liked him because he was so nice to them, and it's just such a crazy thing to think about, like your choices, right? So. You make a choice, and you can always make a choice to do good or to do bad. And you cannot choose the consequences of your decisions. I think that's such a crazy thing. And that's one of the things I think about all the time is if I choose a good thing, that echoes down more good things. And it's very, very, very rare that you make a good choice that has a bad result. or a bad consequence.
Yeah.
And it's also very rare that you make a bad choice that has a good result.
Yeah.
And so I was telling my kids this today on the way to school. It's like, you guys can choose today. If someone's mean to you, you can choose to stop and say, hey, I don't understand. Can we make this right? Like, can we, and that shows them love. But then what you don't realize is, even when you make that choice, that relationship now has a little brick of trust, of good trust in it. And that trust, that little trust brick you made, it makes a bridge between you and not a wall. But there's another brick that you can make, which is the not trust brick, and that makes the wall. And so you can choose to make the bridge or the wall. And the more bridges you have, like, I feel like I walk around.
So you don't just go build the wall. Build no. You say build the bridge.
Build a bridge. And so anyway, I was that's a little more detailed than I was talking to the kids about, but just like, your consequences matter so much, and it's your power. Your power is your choice. And it's the most powerful thing you have. Everyone is technically their own superhero, because you can choose to be the villain of your story or choose to be the hero.
Yeah.
Literally. Like, I was talking to some of my patients about this. It's like, sorry, I'm talking so much.
That's fine.
Like, a guy comes in.
You told me, stop you for a second. You told me, like, a huge percentage of patients that come to, because you're emergency medicine, and your ER doctor. Yeah, that a huge part. If people just slept better, ate better, and exercised, and then didn't do drugs and alcohol, you would have almost no patient. Like, very rarely have patients. Like, accidents still happen, but usually drugs and alcohol are involved, or, one of those things. So, like you said, those are all choices. A choice was made, and then you had gotten an accident, or you got hurt self, or
I call it the hand, right? So like sleep right, eat right, exercise. Don't do bad things.
well, there's that too, yeah.
Literally
robbing someone, and then they end up shooting you, and
well, no, but I mean, like, that includes don't do drugs, don't do things that harm you, and then if you need any kind of other special thing, go find somebody, like a mentor, that actually helps you. I call it the hand. So sleep, eat, exercise, don't do bad stuff. Like, as a general category, don't kill people, do drugs, don't harm yourself, and then try and build yourself. And the other part about that mentoring thing that I like is, really, it's more, the mentoring is specifically something I like, but also like education. So, like, just go learn a skill, or learn something you don't necessarily need, but maybe you could use to help somebody.
Yeah.
And that's a choice for good too, right?
Yeah, for
So.
sure. I sometimes, like, even with jiu-jitsu, like, I never thought of it as a skill that I was.
Totally a skill.
Yeah, I do now, but like.
And you're like a superhero to me, so.
Well, I didn't see it as a way that I could help someone. Like, when you said first, okay, so you said, fast forward, you went to Honduras and you lived in Honduras. You sold all your stuff, which is also insane. Sold all your stuff and took your daughters and your wife to Honduras, which is like a murder capital of the world, and then decided to live there and then help people there. And you're like, Mike, come down here and help out. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm not skilled. Like, I don't have a skill that I can help out. I have no medical anything. I don't even like taking medicine myself. Like, I would do more harm than good, but then you said, well, you'll just come out and teach jiu-jitsu. And I didn't, at the time, I didn't see it as what it could be and, like, help people, and I felt like God helped it, like, he, trusting him allowed me to do the good part, if that makes sense. And that was the skill that I never saw as a skill that I could apply to helping people in a foreign country. Like, I never put those two together, if that makes sense.
So you are highly skilled at jiu-jitsu, and also highly skilled at teaching jiu-jitsu, which I think are two separate things.
They're two separate things.
And so for me, you were super valuable. And I think when you made that, again, the good choice to use what you know to help someone, I mean, those kids are forever changed down there, Mike. And I mean, like, you were literally a rock star when you would come down. It was like, is Mike coming? Is Mike coming? is
I want to go back.
Professor coming? Is he?
I want to go back to Belize, and I want to go back to Honduras. I want to go back to both. Honduras, I don't know how that one would work out because, like, I don't know anyone there anymore. I don't know where I would stay. Belize, I know I already talked to your brother about maybe staying with Kenny, and Kenny kind of said it would be okay to stay at his place and then teach, But I want to go back bad. I really want to go back. Maybe spring. I don't know.
I'll go with you.
I got a lot of stuff I got to figure out here first, and then, but I really, 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 really want to. I feel like I'm supposed to go back. If that makes sense. So.
Well, I don't know what the situation is there too. I mean, there's a lot of conflict that I have going back, but the people, I love the people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. I don't know if I ever told you the story about the two brothers that went and stayed overnight where the entrance to go to the beach was. That I would go. So this was like my introduction to how much you can care about somebody that you barely know in a situation that is totally crazy. So there was a family that was down there that I just loved dearly, and a couple of the people worked at the hospital, and I had a lot of contact with them. I'd seen some of their family members, I'd sewn up their kids, and all sorts of things. But I just had gone to the family and had dinner, and we were mixing in with their life. And I'd been there about 6 months when they knew, and I started doing spearfishing a lot. And so early in the morning, it was so much fun, right? So I put my board on the top of the truck, and I drive down there. Or I didn't have the board at this time, so I just had the spear gun and my fins and my mask and my motorcycle, and I would drive down. I'd sling the spear gun over,
super Indiana Jones style.
And like drive down. I get this like giant pokey spear crossbow thing, and I'd sit on my fins, and I'd put my mask on my head, and I'd drive down and go down through the orchard. Through the palm oil orchard, and then go down to this one entrance and go down to Christie's Beach. And so I got to the point where I was doing it a lot really early before work, right at the crack of dawn, like 5:15. And I would actually swim out when it was still dark to the reef, and then set up. So, because that was the best time. The reef would come alive as soon as the light would hit it. And I go down there, and there's these two guys that I know laying across the road, this like little motorcycle track at kind of by where there was this gate. And I was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we were trying to catch you because you can't go spearfishing today." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, there's a really bad guy on the beach right now, and we don't want you to go down there. Like he's got a machete, and he'll like cut you up.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, seriously. Like, you can't go today. We'll tell you when you can go back spearfishing again. And I didn't realize this, but this guy had like murdered people on the beach before, and
What?
he like down the beach a little ways was where his brother lived, and so he would come and spend time near his brother whenever he would get out of jail. And he just got out of jail, for murdering people on the beach.
They just let you out of jail?
Well, he'd been there for like 5 years or something, so which
Well,
is not that long.
I mean, I feel like you should be in jail longer for murdering someone with a machete. I mean, I know it's a third world, but still, like,
yeah, he murdered two girls in front of their children. Which
oh
was
my
even
gosh,
crazy. Two like young women and like young mothers.
Is
Anyway,
he psychotic? Or
yeah, he's just there's no law there, and so he understands that in a way that is not a good way. So anyway, so they said, don't go there. And I was like, well, how long have you guys been out here? And they're like, well, we were eating dinner, and we realized that you were going to go spearfishing, and we had and one of our other brothers had told us that this guy was back, so we thought we better go out and make sure that you don't. So they'd been there the whole night, just laying down in the like dirt,
snakes everywhere,
scorpions everywhere. Scorpions everywhere.
And that orchard's like kind of creepy, honestly. I don't if staying there
Totally.
overnight. It was like in the middle of the day, I think, when I went down there by myself. And there was like a weird building that's like abandoned there, and then like there's this weird debris everywhere. They just kind of throw the palms when they're done, and just lay in there. And then there's just creepy stuff crawling around everywhere, and I'm not weirded out, but sleeping at like where you sleep at on the ground.
It's kind of swampy, and they've got
Yeah.
those like crazy vines that hang down from the trees,
Yep.
and they kind of slowly move at
Oh,
night.
at night I can't even. I
Ugh.
would be. I'm pretty brave, but I don't know. And then you told me that the guys wander around with
And
machete.
the guys wandering around there, and they're
I
so
can't-
they're just like hanging
There's
out.
no lights down there. There's
And I asked them that. I said, "What? Well, why did you guys both come?" And they're like, "Well, one guy is gonna get chopped up by the machete guys, but two guys that probably won't come over because they're so good with machetes. It's like
Oh, yeah.
when they're 5, they like hand them a machete and they're like, "Here you go," and they just use it their
they're
whole life.
surgical with a machete. It's pretty crazy.
And so anyway, but I was like, wow, and then I went home and I just thought about that, laying on the ground the whole night with this literally machete murderer behind them, just wanting to make sure I was okay. I mean, would I do that for somebody? And I thought about it, like here in the States, if I knew that, like say something crazy, like you hear that there's like an escaped prisoner that's in like the neighborhood, I'm not going to go to even my closest neighbor's house and wait up all night outside on the concrete or on the ground or whatever to make sure they're okay, because I know they're leaving for work in the morning. And like who would do this for somebody? And that was my introduction of how sweet and caring the good people of Honduras were.
Yeah.
And it just that they would do that was like not even a thought. Like they just, as soon as they knew Pedro's in danger, they just went and prevented it.
You're Pedro, by the way.
And I'm Pedro, yeah.
Right.
Dr. Pedro. So
When I was there, one of the things I remember was this: how much people will smile there, like how smiley they were, like they're all on laughing gas or something. Like, and even when we were cruising, picking up the kids in your was it Land Rover or
Land Cruiser,
Yeah,
yeah.
Land Cruiser, and
ambulance style.
yeah, that was cool too. But they're just in these small, very very poor villages with like one lighting everything, and then they're just smiling and laughing and playing and just enjoying life with very little. And that was like, I think I've read about that. Oh, poor, people in other countries are happier, but never got to experience. It's different. I feel like it's different when you are there. You could read that all you want, but until you see like, oh yeah, some of these kids have nothing to eat. They had nothing to eat, and they're just so happy. Like I've cut weight before, and it's very miserable, and I'm very grumpy. Nobody wants to be around me. Like, Mike, what's wrong with you? I'm like, oh, I cut out carbs, and I'm just a terrible. I'm so grumpy, and they're just not that way. I'm sure they have bad days or whatever, but like,
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, cutting out carbs is a hardship. That's like a real serious. No.
I love carbs. I mean, I love carbs. Love them.
Yeah, like not being able to go fishing because there's the machete murderer. It's
yeah.
like kind of a bigger crimp on your style.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like yeah, I mean they're very very happy because they're not necessarily. I think they're probably more happy because they know how to appreciate things, and if life is really hard, then when something good comes your way, you celebrate it,
Yeah, and people die very easily there, so that can put you
for no
to
reason.
appreciate the little things that you do have. Sometimes it's too good here.
Yeah, seeing a friend and knowing they're still alive and that they're healthy doesn't seem like that big a deal to us. But really, for them, if they see someone they haven't seen for a while that they liked, or who helped them, or it's a huge deal to see them again and know that they're okay, and just that sparks joy in people, and that's a really cool thing. Knowing that just you being alive and coming back to see somebody is.
How long did you live in Honduras for?
It was literally
5 years.
2 weeks shy of 5 years. Yeah.
It's about 5 years.
So, I mean, I always say 5 years, but then I feel like I'm lying. So
2 weeks short of 5 years.
So yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. It's like everything is so amazing or so terrible the whole time. There's no There's not a lot of middle ground. Um, there's so much stuff that happened there that's good. I saw miracles. I must have looked like a fool one day. I had this guy who'd been we called him Jose Cowface. He'd been going like 90 miles an hour on a motorcycle.
Jose Cowface.
Well, that's what I called him. But his last name, I forget. I think it was Castellano.
Baka Kaka
But,
Kara
But
Karabaka.
Karabaka.
Hey, what's up, Karabaka?
But he'd been going. So the story was that he was someplace down the road a little bit where it was pavement, and he was going to head to La Ceiba because he'd heard about a party, and it was like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, and he was drunk.
Oh, that's good.
And his two buddies wanted to go too.
Those roads, being drunk on motorcycles, I don't know how there's not more people dead or not surviving
There's
or completely broken.
It gets bad fast. Yeah. So
Everyone was there on so many people had motorcycles, not cars. That kind of surprised me too, which makes sense, but I don't know why it surprised me. But just
yeah,
and not as many helmets as I thought there should be as well.
And people said it was really dramatic, the amount of traffic on the roads from when they'd been there. And when I was there, I noticed it too. Like when I first got there was no vehicles. Like to have a vehicle was like a big deal. And then by the end of the time, everyone had mopeds and motorcycles, which was really interesting. But yeah, so this guy's going. He's 20. Was he 19 years old, and he has a motorcycle. It doesn't have a headlight.
That's a no to on a motorcycle.
And it's like 11 o'clock at night, and he's a little drunk.
And there's giant potholes.
And his buddy says, "Hey, let's go to this new party in La Ceiba," which is like 30 minutes away. And he's like, "But we got to get there before, like, the cops show up, or before or we got to get liquor, or we got to do something." They had to hurry, is what the story was. So him and two guys get on this motorcycle, and they're going like 80 or 90 miles an hour.
Safe without a headlight.
Drunk, without a headlight, down a road that doesn't have markings, and literally has 3 and 4 foot deep potholes.
Oh yeah, that's
it.
what I'm saying. When the potholes aren't like potholes here, like, oh man, that might mess up my tire. No, you fall in the pothole, like the truck is the wheel might fall off, or the front end might go into the.
But it's nice because somebody will put like a branch in it for you so you can see it, that it's really deep.
That's good.
So he's driving, and apparently a black cow tried to cross the road, and he just, no brakes, no nothing, hit this cow midpoint. And so his face hit the cow. That's why I call him Cowface. And he had a Hemi Lafort 3 on the right and a Hemi Lafort 2 on the left, which means that I could literally reach into his face and grab with my thumb here like that, and I could pull his face out like a cash register, like ching ching. So he had so many fractures in his face.
Oh my goodness.
So he wasn't breathing well. I intubated him. And
do you even have medical services that could even put metal in,
we just happened to have an oral maxillary facial surgeon there that God had brought there he was there for like a year and a half, and he super skilled guy, and it's like
but even if you're skilled, part of it is equipment.
Yeah,
right?
He has all the stuff too, though.
Okay.
Yeah, we had full ORs and things, so I ended up putting chest tubes in this guy. He ended up having so many rib fractures.
Were the other two guys in the motorcycle messed up too then, right?
No, that's the crazy thing. The guy who was right behind him kind of hit him and went over the whole thing.
Okay.
And so he didn't stop fast. He just kept rolling. And
that's got to mess you up too if you're doing really, 80. I mean,
yeah, he was really scraped up, but I think he broke his hand. I'm not sure about them because I never saw them, but I think he broke his hand or his elbow, something like that. But he was just all scraped up. And the other guy, the guy behind the three, must have been asleep or something, because when he threw off, he was just like unconscious. He hit his head and nothing else. He had no other marks, and he woke up and was fine. Didn't even go to a doctor, didn't do anything. So, but they hit the cow so hard, the only thing holding the two halves of the cow together was the spine. Like it was broke at the
So
spine,
the cow was just
and the cow was
dead.
in two
The
pieces.
cow was just.
Yeah, the
Uh,
motorcycle went like through the cow.
and I also feel bad because people are so poor there that some of them only have one cow.
I think this guy had multiple cows. The funny part was that he got a ticket for not for driving without a headlight and not for riding on a motorcycle drunk at 11, but the ticket he got was for hurting the cow.
Hurting the cow, yeah. I mean, that's money, like
And so because he got a ticket
someone's
for it,
property.
he had to pay for the cow.
Yeah.
And the other part that was funny was that he didn't have like the wherewithal because he's broke his face all up. He also had 8 rib fractures on one side, like right where your spine is. They broke off on one side, and he had 8 on one side and 5 on the other, if I remember right. Anyway, his lung was down. I put a chest tube in him. I mean, there was so many things. He also broke his hand from hitting the cow, hitting the cow.
Yeah.
At 80 miles an hour.
It's like hitting a mushy wall.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if he had any abdominal. We didn't think he had any abdominal problems, and that was just with the ultrasound. So he was a mess. But he wasn't breathing, and they had put him in the ER in La Ceiba, and he just sat there for like a day, and then he started not being able to breathe. So they brought him to me. They took him all the way back out.
It's a long drive.
And then he stopped breathing.
How long a drive do you think? I don't remember. Like an hour?
Hour and a half. Yeah.
Okay. I was kind of thought it was about an hour and a half. So.
Yeah. And it depends.
But for someone not breathing, an hour and a half is a long time. Right here, if 5 minutes away from a hospital could be life and death. Like if I don't get to the hospital fast enough.
For sure.
And and that road is just sketchy. So if I'm driving fast to try to save this dude, I could just crash again in another pothole or another cow or whatever. It's crazy.
So then I had him intubated, and I told the family, I said, look, I have no signs of life in this guy. He's got, and then he also had a brain bleed. So they literally had said at La Ceiba, he's just gonna die. Sorry, you just take him home or whatever. And they said, no, you can save him. So we were trying to leave him in the hospital, and then when nobody was coming around anymore, they brought him to me. And so it's been like a day and a half since this accident, and or maybe it was 24 hours. I don't remember exactly the details. I'm sorry, but I had him intubated for 2 days. I couldn't pull the chest tube. Finally got him off the vent. He was breathing on his own, but there was literally no signs of life. I would do Babinski's, I would do cold calorics, I would do all these different tests. I would check for pupillary response, everything, and he had 0 neurologic response. He was breathing, but that was it. And so I weaned him off of BiPAP, and then I weaned him down, and we finally got him on room air on oxygen, and I thought he'll choke on a vomit and he'll die, or he'll get a big pneumonia and he'll die in a couple days. His brain's gone. That what I thought was because he had so much facial fractures and so much bleeding in his frontal lobe, that they had done a CT at that hospital, and I had the CT, this big thing of blood in the front of his brain, and I thought maybe what happened is it continued to bleed and he'd herniated, so the brain is no longer talking to the spinal cord. The spinal cord is just going on reflex, so it's just breathing, it's just peeing, that kind of thing. So day 4, day 5, day 6, still no response. The family's coming in, and they would come in and they would pray and they would pray and they would pray for him, and it was like these 30 people in this family, and it was really cool to see how faithful they were. They said, God's going to do a miracle, God's a miracle. And I don't know, I can't tell you how many times I've had this situation where the person's totally unresponsive, wouldn't respond to anything. Sternal rub, crushing their nail beds. They won't even reflex. And so his GCS was 3, which means you get 3 points for showing up, for being there. There's no response from him at all. And I did this every day, and the family would tell me, "Oh, he squeezed my hand," and I'm like, "Well, that's you can do certain
response.
things that they'll do like a little, just a nerve reflex." And that was the only response that they had. They said, he's talking, he's doing stuff, and I was like, he's talking, and he would kind of like do that, like a couple chews, which is it's another reflex.
Plus,
so.
you said his face was like in and out. I mean, I can't even.
So broken.
I can't even make. How do you make it move your jaw? Or I guess your jaw is here. I don't know. You said
so your mandible is here, and then you have your
That's the top.
maxilla. This piece right here is your maxilla, and then you have your zygoma, and you have your lacrimal, and your nasal bones, and then frontal bone, and you have occipital, parietal, temporal. There's a lot of bones in the skull, and anyway, so I'm examining him on the seventh day, and I told him, I said, hey, look, if he doesn't respond, we're just gonna send him home with you today. We're just gonna discharge him, and he'll pass away at home because his brain's dead. And I came in, and the whole family's in there, and they'd been praying and praying and praying, and I just had no hope, Mike. I mean, I literally, everything that I could do to this guy told me that his brain was dead. Everything, every single test. The only thing I didn't have was an MRI showing no flow to his brain. But I mean, he had irregular breathing. His heart rate would go up and down. Like, he had total what's called autonomic dysregulation. Like, his brain was no longer helping his spinal cord keep track of what his heart rate and his breathing should be. So they were all over the place. His blood pressure would go high, would go low. His heart rate would go high and low. His breathing would go fast and slow. It was just, it was terrible. And I knew he was dying. I knew he was dead. He was actually dead already. His body was finishing off the time here. And so I went in, and I said, I did my exam, and everything was negative. He didn't move at all, and they were all praying. And I said, so I'm gonna send him home. There's no hope at this point. It's been 7 days. He's got literally no recovery. I said, there's really not much chance at all that his brain's has survived. And I said, well, I'm gonna send him home. And they said, try one more time. And I mean, how do you not tell the family? No, I mean, I've just done this for a week.
Yeah.
Straight. He's dead. His brain is dead. And, sorry.
There's a disco in your pocket.
Disco pocket. And so I literally, reached over and gave him a sternal rub to just prove again. And I'd just done it. And he reached up and he grabbed my hand.
Did that freak you out?
He grabbed my hand, so he had purposeful movement. His eyes opened up, and he looked at me, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this dude was literally straight dead 1 second before this. 1 second ago, he was dead. And I can't shake that was
Miracle.
for sure a miracle. I mean, I'd been with this guy for 7 days straight. I'd slept in the hospital the first 2 nights at his bedside with him, and he'd never moved. He'd never done anything. Nothing that was a sign of life. And now all of a sudden, after I just examined him, he suddenly wakes up and grabs my hand and looks at me like,
who are you?
I was like,
where am I?
whoa! And I'm getting chills thinking about it now. Like, I was so freaked out because I had lost all hope. I mean, the guy was dead. Sorry, I whacked it when I whacked the mic when but I must have looked like an idiot because I literally rode my. This is like 7 a.m, so I hadn't taken a shower or anything. I went down to go back up to take a shower before I went to the clinic, and as I went down, there's like all these people at the gate waiting to be seen, and I just started yelling in Spanish. This is a place where miracles happen. God is alive. He just did a miracle. There was a patient who was dead, and now they're alive. And I just couldn't believe it. I just was, I just saw a miracle, Mike. I saw the dead rise, and it was, it was nothing I did. Literally nothing I did. I just said the dude is so dead. He's not coming back. Like honestly, for several days I'd stopped praying for him. I had really felt like that's how bad it was. Like, it was just everything was
just time
was
he was
gone.
It's over.
And it was so crazy because I'd prayed so hard for some people, and they
Nothing
don't come
happened,
back.
yeah.
And then this guy that I gave up on, and I was
Yeah.
like, he's dead. I mean, I've seen this so many times. He's dead. His brain's toast. That's the guy. God just. It was crazy. Like 3 months later, he's riding past on his motorcycle with his
What?
girlfriend, and I was like, "Put on your helmet, you fool!" So
Did he ever just like he remember you or say thank you or?
yeah. I mean, we ended up putting a feeding tube in him. We got the chest tube out. We fixed all the fractures in his face. He had all these little metal plates all over.
I met some guy and his face was jacked up, and I thought you said he fell under a bus or something like that.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
one
yeah.
guy like he just like, and that was tripped me out when we were in La Ceiba. It was so crazy when I was there that I was like, I was a little bit. First of all, when I stepped off the boat, because I took the plane to Roatan, then I took the boat over, and then you were supposed to pick me up, and I had no contact of you. And when I first went, I had no it got screwed up. I had my own kind of miracle that I
Yep.
made the plane and everything, and so I know the times were off, and I was like, and I remember I was holding your paddle for your paddle board, and I had some medical supplies in my backpack, and I was like, my Spanish is not that good, and I don't know what I would do. I don't have a phone to get a hold of Peter, and I don't know where this place is at. I don't know. I barely had the name of the place in my head. And I'm like, I'm not that prepared. Like, I'm not as prepared as I thought. I was studying Spanish, but still, it was terrible. And I just remember the city itself was just buzzing. Like, just buzzing. Like, just crap going everywhere. Like, people everywhere. People carrying chickens. Like, cars going by with people with machine guns. And it was just a wild place. And then I remember when you picked me up, you're like, hey, you want to go to Burger King? And I was like, I was just trying to take it all in. And I remember the buses like going over the curb, and it was like a school bus, and dude just hanging out the door.
Yeah.
And I guess he's just yelling, hey, you want to get on the bus? Or I don't know what he
Yep.
was yelling because I can't speak Spanish that well, but I was assuming he was saying, hey, you need a bus ride? You
Yeah,
know?
we're going here. You want anybody want to pay for the ride?
But he's just hanging out the side, and I kept thinking to myself, like, that guy, somebody's got to have been falling off the bus at least once or twice. Like, you hit a curb, and then they're just like, oh, there he goes.
That's Alejandro. That's
And you said
Alejandro Milagro. Yeah.
And I remember he was like,
He was messed up. Yeah, his face was asymmetric. So he was one of those guys hanging out the bus, and his cell phone fell, and he tried to grab it, and he fell. And when he fell, the bus was going around a corner, so he went right. He hit, and the back wheels went right over him, went right over his abdomen, and crushed his pelvis. And I remember talking to my wife in the middle of the courtyard of the hospital, and looking out the doors and seeing a bus come up. And like, that's a little tiny road for a bus to come up.
Yes.
And they never came up there. And I was like, oh no, like literally a bus is here. And they pulled him out, and he was like a light pale green, and he was on his side, and I could see his hip bone fractured and sticking out of his back. There was a hole about this big on his back, about that big. His hip bone was cracked in two, and it was sticking out. And when they put him on the bed, this wave of blood came out, like literally, like someone sloshed a bucket full of blood came out. And I looked at him, and he said, "Tell my mother I love her." And I was like, "This is gonna be bad." And we got him back there, and there was all these different things that lined up for him to live. That's why I call him Alejandro Milagro, because Milagro means miracle. And he was a young guy too. He was 19, 20 years old, but he had 8 hip fractures. His spine was no longer attached to his hips.
I think I saw him. He was walking though.
Yeah, he walks.
I mean, he was.
Yeah,
he
kinda,
had a weird leg thing, but I mean, he's walking.
Yeah, he was walking. He's married, has kids now too. So
his hips work.
So the nerves running down to areas deep in his hip work well. So literally Jeff, the surgeon, was late going someplace. He was supposed to leave for the weekend, and something had happened. Like I always tell people it was a flat tire, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was something mechanical with his car. So he didn't leave for like an hour and a half, so he was still there. Otherwise, this guy would have died. There was one of my friends, Abby McNitis, was there. She's another ER doctor, and she remembered to do a pelvic binder on him, and that saved his life. Me and Abby and this other guy, Mark, were all B positive, and he's B positive, so we all gave blood right then. Literally, blood coming out of me, going into a bag. Then they literally took it out of me, changed the tubing, and put it right into him. It was awesome.
That's how they do that?
Yep. It's a whole blood transfusion, so it was crazy.
You got to go?
No. She just wants to know if Kinsey can go to mathnasium. So, with her strep throat. So like I sewed up his back. Jeff blindly threw these pins in to keep his pelvis together. He just put these big screws, like this long screws, like 4-inch screws, into his pelvis, and then wired it all together with like building blocks, literally, like wired it all together. We transfused.
Jeff's the guy that ran it all.
Yeah, he's the head of the whole mission. Yeah, Jeff McKinney. And so Jeff did that. Then he left. Then I transfused him 9 units of blood, and we needed 9 units, and we didn't have 10. Like we didn't have a 10th one.
That was it.
And I gave him the 9th one, and it was perfect. We need to stop. We can stop now. We can kind of go from here. I mean, there's so many things. The lady who normally does the transfusions, the only one we have, wasn't supposed to be there that day, but she has a friend who was doing chemotherapy, this daughter of her friend, and so she'd come in to help with that, and she'd come in on the wrong day. So if she hadn't been there, we wouldn't have been able to transfuse him. What else is there? I mean, community. There was a team there that had 2 people that were B positive. Without them, we wouldn't have had enough blood. It was just miracle after miracle after miracle, and that's what I think. I think I don't realize the most about God is his ability to get the logistics in place.
Line it up.
Yeah, I mean,
line it up. Yeah.
If I wasn't there, if Abby wasn't there, if Mark wasn't there, if Jeff wasn't there, if the bus driver hadn't just thrown him on the bus and drove right up there, and I'm talking 5 minutes for some of this stuff.
So going way, way back to the earlier conversation, you said at age 12, you said you didn't believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
And because you felt like what your father told you at one point, he didn't tell the truth, and that, you couldn't trust him, that maybe that this part of life might, I'm paraphrasing, but this part of life might not be true either, because maybe he's like fairy tale, like Santa Claus. You tell your kid about Santa Claus. Some people tell about Santa Claus.
Tooth fairy, Santa Claus.
And it's that sort of thing. I want you to be good because, Jesus is watching, not because you should be good because you should be good.
There's another thing. So my dad at one point told me that if I didn't do my homework, I would get physical pains because I had this pain in my leg.
Okay.
And I said, he examined my leg, and I said,
he's like, I'm a doctor. Trust me about this.
and he's like, did you do your homework? And I said, no. And he said, that's why you have the pain in your leg. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that it could do that. So I did my homework all the time because I didn't want it hurt really bad. I didn't want to get pains, and I didn't know that if you didn't do your homework, you got physical pains, which is a total lie.
Yes.
But I didn't know that, so I was 8 when I did that.
All your stories with your dad, he seems like such a character,
He's a great dad. He really was. He's
what was? So you end up going there to South Africa, and you're not really believing. What was the thing that you that would say that changed your heart? What was the thing that you were like, okay, I believe now, right? I'm in the right direction now.
So
was there a moment, or was it a slowly melting thing, or was it like a lightning punch to the face moment?
One distinct crystalline second. Yeah.
And
so I was so go back to that story.
Was that in South Africa, or was that okay?
I've been there for 2 weeks, and my aunt asked me to pray, and so I literally remember thinking, "Oh gosh, I'm not gonna pray. This is so stupid. There's no God." And so
So literally, at one point, you're an atheist, basically.
I don't know if I was necessarily specifically an atheist. I still more agnostic. I kind of believed there was a God, but it didn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah. Okay.
and I was still on the fence. Like
About the rest.
I was kind of like agnostic atheism, trying to figure out
Yeah.
what I if there is no God or if there is a God. I don't know. So, anyway, so I was trying to just be obedient to my aunt. And I think that was part of.
You just loved your aunt.
I just love my aunt. She's just an amazing woman. So Charmin's right. So she said pray about it. So I was like, okay, well if Charmin wants me to pray about it, I'll pray about it, even though I don't believe in the God. So I remember going back to my room when I was reading this book about kids and how you teach. You need to get on their level,
On your
like
knees,
physically.
Yeah.
You get down to their level, so you're not intimidating. That you're
Yeah.
sharing information straight this way,
Yep.
not up and down. And,
Yep.
and I was reading it, and I said, okay, well I'll pray about it now. God, I don't believe in. Prayer that is meaningless that I'm saying right now.
Yep.
Should I stay or should I go? Great talk. Hope to still not hear from you tomorrow, right? Like something really snide and
Yep.
terrible. Next morning, wake up.
How old were you at the time?
24, I think. 23 or.
So you were
23
pretty.
or 24.
I mean, you're pretty old, but and still not. I mean,
Yeah, and talk about driving
believing
your
not
ship
not
into the rocks.
not believing for quite a long time. Just doing whatever.
The captain of my ship.
Yeah.
So full steam ahead into the rocks, and so I'm there, and the next morning I do the same kind of prayer, and I actually remember getting on my knees and leaning on the bed and saying, "Look, I'm even like how you're supposed to pray to the God that I don't believe in." Yeah. So God, tell me for sure whether or not I'm supposed to be here or not, or if I'm supposed to go back and do what I want to do. And thanks a lot for this talk. And yeah, anyway, I don't believe in you. So I'm just talking to myself. Sweet. Okay, there's job completed. I can tell my aunt now I prayed. Good. So I get out and I'm walking up from my house, and I have to walk through the school to my aunt's house to tell her I'm leaving, that I'm not staying. And so I'm walking up there, and I'm walking through, and the kids all have sky blue shirts and dark kind of charcoal gray pants or skirts, depending on if you're a girl or a boy. And there's this kid, this like kind of really round little guy, and his name's Awanke Magoda, and he's playing with the ball. And as I'm walking through, I'm looking over the courtyard, which has probably got 100 kids in it at least, maybe more. And I see we kind of lock eyes, me and Awanke, and I don't know what his name is at this point. And he drops the ball, and he just starts running towards me, like through the other kids, you know. And I'm walking around the edge of all the kids, and I realize this kid is coming to me, like he's really coming to me. And I do the kneel down because I'm going to get on his level, and he just slams into me like a cannonball. It throws his arms around me and squeezes me so fiercely, and he whispers in my ear, "I love you. I love you. I love you."
And he's never met you before?
Never met me before. I don't know who he is. He's not in my class. In fact, kind of what I knew about this kid was he was kind of a
Jerk.
well, he was beating kids up
Oh,
all the time.
jeez.
So, anyway, I just knew in that moment, and even now, right now, I know, and it sounds stupid, but I know that was God, you know, telling me that he loved me, and he kind of let me go, and then he ran back and grabbed the ball and started playing, and it just floored me. I'd prayed like a year or two earlier. I'd been in Israel at the Wailing Wall, and I'd prayed that if God was real, that he would show himself to me, that he would reveal himself to me. And that's when he did it, Mike. I mean, he just said, he told me through this kid that he loved me. And I went up and I told my aunt, I guess I'm staying. And I proceeded to be like probably the worst missionary that you can be for the next year or two, because I've been doing my own thing so long. I mean, I told an alcoholic that there was a part of the Bible. He said, when I ask you for money, why don't you give me money? I said, because you're an alcoholic. And he said, well, in the Bible it says that, if a kid asks a dad for a fish, he doesn't give him a snake, or if he asks for bread, he doesn't give him a stone. And so why do you not give me anything? And I said, that's not in the Bible. And it's in the Bible. So I mean, I was a terrible missionary, but it was just crazy. And ever since then, I've really tried to let God drive the ship. And the better I get at it, the cooler stuff happens to me. And it's all just obedience. And that's what I come back to. Every amazing thing in my life is from obedience. And that's a choice. It's a choice. It's the most powerful choice I have, is to choose to obey, to choose to do the good things. And think about how much more powerful the choice is if you are not the one making the choice, but you're allowing God to direct the choice. The one who actually knows the whole universe, actually has the most incredible plan for this planet, and if you let him do the choosing and you let him work through you, the stuff that happens is ridiculous. And I used to think that if I was just nice enough to everyone and kind enough to everyone, that everyone would love me, and that like you just have to be even nicer, that you could turn anybody. And actually, I shouldn't say I used to think that. And then I got discouraged. You'd be nice to somebody and they'd still be a jerk to you.
Sure.
And but what I think I'm realizing right now, what I think God is teaching me right now, is that if you continue to make those choices and love people and not return hate for hate, but return love for hate, that the biggest thing I'm learning right now is that they can still hate you, but God's still God. And the choice to choose, the choice of obeying God is so much more important than someone hating you or not liking you or anything. And then think about that choice. Like, I chose to return love when someone hated me, when someone said something horrible about me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. It's that brick. I'm building that bridge. Now, I don't know if that bridge is going to actually, the person's ever going to come across. They can choose not to come across that bridge.
Mm-hmm.
They can choose to use the brick to make a wall too. The other person can. But if you are trying to make a bridge,
You use the brick to hit you in the face with it.
use the brick to hit you in the face with it. And that sucks. And that's like counter to the way to think about life. But that interaction will let them know that there are people that react differently.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that might spark an interest to say, well, why did he react differently? Like, everybody else that I do this to returns hate for hate. Like, that's the normal thing. And maybe you're the one that God's going to use to nudge somebody in the right direction.
Yeah, it amazes me how many small things have a ripple effect on something different that has consequences that I did not intend, good and bad. And that's kind of like the sin, and we've talked about that before. Like, a small sin sometimes can be a terrible thing, and but also good things, like very small things. Like, sometimes, like, even very simple things of holding a door for someone. Like, sometimes in my mind I go, you know what? Like, maybe holding the door, as ridiculous as that might sound, maybe that person was having such a terrible day. Like, if you decide, you walked in front of them and cut them off, like, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, that's a straw, like, I'm going to literally stab someone. People snap, you know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I feel like a little kindness could be the difference that day from them doing something terrible, or hope, giving them hope that, like, oh, there's still good people. Like, the person held the door for me. And again, it's such a stupid, simple thing, but it takes me, 3 to 5 seconds, maybe tops, to hold a door. Like, is that a lot in my day that I can do that for somebody? Or letting someone in traffic, like, traffic gets you so ramped up and so amped up and your heart rate up and you're racing and you get so pissed off. And I know people have got out of their cars and tried to fight people before, so maybe help Maybe helping someone, in front of me, like, that calms them down. Maybe that calmed them down, and they didn't go home and beat their wife. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
you
mean? Like,
don't
I'm
know.
such
You
a
have no
bad.
idea.
You don't know. So I try to do as much good as I can that is possible within my grasp, and just assume that hopefully that those are leading to other good things. That will reverberate through history.
Well,
As simple, as stupid as that sounds, it's the way that I try to live my life. Is I try to do that, and the simple influence that I have, let that influence other people in a positive way.
I have some funny stories that people have told me about, like, that little choice you make and then, like, the weird consequences. Sorry, are we going too long?
No, I don't know. We ended so good. I wanted to just stop the podcast. I just felt like, man, I don't know. I don't think
that was a good spot to end.
I feel like we should end it now, and then I should just have you back, unless you take off for another mission, but then I can visit you there, and then we'll just do it there or something like that.
We can come back anytime too. I have so many stories.
You have a ton of stories. So yeah, let's just end it, and we'll just do another one.
Good time.
Hopefully, I didn't get too personal. Or
Mike, I love you so much. You're amazing.
All right, well, that's it. I'll just like to
talk
say
for
peace.
just a second, help me feel that
That's it.
sense of
Thanks,
rhythm,
man.
find
Thank
the
you for
meanings
having
in
me
our
on. Take a
bearings,
picture of
and
you and
discover this
we'll be done.
position as a
Awesome.
stage
Thank you
along
for
the way.
having us.
Another rung to the ladder, either stalling or you're climbing, and I'd rather beat the ladder. Instead of getting fatter, let the footsteps resume. Naturally, we gradually might stretch out of tune, but integrity's an instrument, harmonious.